This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, June 17th, 2024, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will bring you the latest Iowa Ag News headlines, and then I will be joined by Christina Banoub. She is the Manager of Competition, Labor, and Tax Issues for the National Pork Producers Council. It is time now for our closing market summary.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day, we are joined by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. And Robin, to start the day, to start the week, how did the grains do?
Yeah, grains were under significant pressure today. Some people have questioned it because of the hotter weather coming in, but you look at the crop conditions, they're so much better than a year ago. I mean, really, if you just look at crop conditions, there's no reason for the market to see any strength at this point. Now, maybe getting closer into or moving into July is going to be a different story, but for right now, we saw significant pressure on the market. Most pressure coming in on wheat initially, but soybeans and wheat kind of the same, seeing, 20-cent losses, somewhere in that vicinity. Now, export inspections earlier this morning, we had corn at 50.66 million bushels, down 2.1 million bushels from a week ago. Beans at 12.38 million bushels. That was up 3.7 million bushels from last week, and wheat was 13.77 million bushels, up 2.9 million bushels from last week. Well, again, it's something to keep adding together to see how our pace is relative to last year. They didn't have any influence really on the market at this point in time. I think the main reason is because we're looking at the potentially good conditions. We're looking at, some beneficial rains in some part of the country moving through this week. Some places will be missing some of it. It's interesting to hear how some people are saying that now they're actually on the drier side and they would like to have some rain versus, basically a week ago or 2 weeks ago, everybody was talking about having too much rain. So that's just the way the market usually works, or weather, I should say, usually works, and how it impacts the market. Now, this afternoon on our crop conditions, corn is estimated at 73% good to excellent. Last week it was 74, so 1% decrease is what the average trade estimate is. Last year, though, we were at 55%, so that makes a big difference as far as when the overall trade is looking at the corn crop. And we'll see the same thing in the soybean crop, with they're looking at 71% good to excellent, down 1% from last week, and comparative to 54% a year ago. Spring wheat conditions at 71% as well. That's down 1%, 51% a year ago, good to excellent. And winter wheat at 46%, down 1% as well, like the others. And from a week ago, and 38% last year at this time. Now, soybeans are expected to be 95% planted, 87% last week, and 100% a year ago. Winter wheat harvested 22% versus 12% last week, so a 10% increase in harvest. Looks to be moving along fairly good in some areas or this week. 15% was harvested a year ago, so we are seeing a little bit better pace at this point in time. Now, interesting, we've had a lot of rain. California basically broke the drought in California. However, farmers in the Central Valley are receiving only 40% of their water allotment, despite all of the moisture that we've seen, despite plentiful water supplies. water is being restricted in that area, and they're a big producer of vegetables and some other commodities as well, but they're being restricted due to the protecting endangered fish species. So even though they're basically saying surrounded or inundated by water, they're only getting 40% of their allotment. And what's happening is they're reducing their crop planting acreage. So that'll be interesting to see how that's going to work on the vegetable side of the market and some of the fruit side of the market. So it's one of those things where you're staring at water, but you can't get your allotment because of some environmental issues.
So a lot of pressure on the grains today. What did it look like on the other side of the ag marketplace with the cattle and hogs?
Well, we did see the huge movement up on Friday. We saw a strong cash in cattle, southern cattle $1 higher, northern cattle, the dressed cattle $4 to $5 higher. We saw strong futures on Friday. So it pushed through resistance, closed above chart resistance. We left gaps in the market on Friday to the upside. Traders were just so excited on Friday. Now we opened up today with some follow through. However, that was short lived and the market kind of tipped back a little bit. Traders are maybe waiting this week to see if further or look for further assurance that prices are going to remain higher. We did see a big movement. Now we're heading into toward the dog days of summer, which normally we see a little pullback on beef demand. So far, it's been strong and stronger than was anticipated. I mean, we saw some strong box beef prices on Friday. Today, we're seeing box beef price higher again, at least at the midday report. Choice was up 75 cents, select up 240. So we're really continuing to see some strong demand coming from the beef sector. Now, we do have the first day of summer coming in later this week. Obviously, that's not a real pivotal point or so, but it's just moving us into that summer time frame. We're seeing some hotter, humid weather in many parts of the nation. So, but maybe this is going to be a year when they're going to look past that, and beef prices are going to be good because demand is there, and we do have less cattle available, but at higher weights. So there's some conflicting information in that market, but yet the proof is the current prices where we're at. Now on the hog side, we've got some follow through today from the big reversal on Friday. We had new contract lows Friday. Market shot back higher out of there. I think part of it was because of the box beef and higher cash on Friday. Not box beef, I'm sorry. I had that in my mind. Strong cutouts in pork and the higher cash market on Friday. Now we're seeing follow through today, pushing the closer months into triple digit gains. We don't have cash for today, but the issue is the cutouts. Cutouts are down $2.97 on the midday report. See, on Friday, we gained $4.33. So we're taking away quite a bit of that, which that's been, the market's been notorious for that. Last week, we saw a huge increase in in cutouts on one day. We saw it being taken away the next 2 days. So that's normal or recently for that market. What we need to see is that continue to see some strength and move higher like boxed beef has. Now, China opened up an anti-dumping investigation into pork and pork byproducts from the European Union. And that's in response to their tariffs on their electric vehicles that the EU put on. And that investigation is going to cover all of last year and will target fresh, cold, and frozen pork, pork offal, pig fat without lean meat, pig intestines, bladders, and stomachs. Sounds very appetizing. Not really, but So here's a response to tariffs being put on, and then they're going to look all the way back to last year. So I don't know how that all works and how that feasibility is, but during the meantime, exports can continue just like they have been from the EU to China. And so I don't know if that's going to really provide a whole lot of impact or just going to be some rhetoric back and forth, hoping that maybe EU will drop the tariffs on electric vehicles. But anyway, that's just kind of a tit for tat that's happening between those two right now.
He is Robin Schmahl with agmarket.net, our guest here for our show here on Ag Matters PM. Robin, thanks so much for the time. What is the best way for our listeners and our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
They can call me directly if they would like at 877-256-3253. They can go to our website, agmarket.net, and call the number under Contact Us, 844-424-6758. And somebody will be happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you so much for the time here today. We appreciate it as always, and have a great rest of your week.
All right, you as well, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for our closing market summary. Let's turn now to the closing numbers, which of course you can find at any time under the markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com. July corn closes down 6 1/4 at 443 3/4. July soybeans down 22 even at 1157 3/4. July soybean meal down $8.10 at 360.30. July soybean oil up 5 cents at 43.73. Chicago wheat down 21 1/4 at 591 1/2. Minneapolis wheat down 17 even at 638 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat down 22 even at 605 1/2. And July oats down 10 1/2 at 317 1/2. On the Merc, August live cattle down 37 cents at 182.80. August feeder cattle down 65 cents at 261.32. July lean hogs up $1.72 at 95.37. July pork cutout unchanged at 103.50. And Class 3 milk down 48 cents at 20.19. That does it for our ag market coverage for today. It is time now to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. And up next, it is the latest Iowa Ag News headlines.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It is time now for the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says the USDA is awarding $50 million to 141 awardees in 40 states and Puerto Rico. The funds come from the Farm Labor Stabilization and Protection Pilot Program and will reach 177 unique agricultural operations and more than 11,000 workers. The awards are intended to improve the resiliency of the U.S. food supply chain by addressing agriculture labor challenges and instability, strengthening protections for farm workers, and expanding legal pathways for labor migration. Quote, these awards will largely support small and mid-sized farms to ensure they can hire and retain the workers they need to be competitive in the market, while also lifting rural communities across the country. That's according to Secretary Vilsack. He says farm workers make an incredibly important contribution to food and agriculture and ensure that we have food on our tables every day, end quote. FLSP was put together with significant input from immigration, labor, and agricultural stakeholders like farmers and farm workers. Bureau of Land Management Director Tracy Stone Manning testified at a Senate Energy and Natural Resources hearing recently. She was pressed by Republicans on the committee on topics like renewable energy, conservation, and mining. The committee Republicans accused Stone Manning of advancing President Biden's agenda without listening to people directly impacted by the agency's work. It was the first appearance by the Bureau of Land Management Director since she was confirmed to her post on a party line vote in 2021. Stone Manning said she was committed to helping the nation achieve the president's goals of eliminating carbon emissions from the power sector by 2035. Also in today's show, I'm joined by Christina Banoub. She is the Manager of Competition, Labor, and Tax Issues for the National Pork Producers Council. We will discuss many legal matters that complicate the employment process for both ag workers and employers, namely in the form of visa-related issues. Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm here with Christina Banoub with the National Pork Producers Council. And Christina, could you tell us your title, please, within the organization?
Yes, I'm Competition, Labor, and Tax Manager.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you've been working on recently here within the NPPC space and things you'd like to let our viewers know about?
Yeah, recently, perennial issues, the shortage of reliable workforce in rural America. So we're always working on a variety of visa-related issues to try and secure a reliable workforce for pork producers, and that includes both H-2A visas, which is we don't technically have access to as an industry, it's a seasonal visa, and we're trying to make that non-seasonal so that we can also use it. And of course, TN visas, which are based on the USMCA free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, and that brings over folks from Mexico.
And when you're working on those proposals, things to try and make these issues, I guess, find a solution to them, is it producers coming to you with those problems about finding labor and saying, hey, this is something I ran into, or is it just something that you find from the workers' perspective where they say, we were trying to get this job here but didn't have this right paperwork? How does that process work?
Sure. It mostly comes from the producer side. So with the H-2A program, for a long time, NPPC has been seeking greater access to that. As a year-round industry, pork producers don't have access to a seasonal visa, and that would be a big boost if we were able to access that program. With the TN visas, a lot of producers have been using that, and when they have concerns, they come to me.
So, Christina, when we talk about how much work has been done towards this, are we close to finding a resolution eventually for solving some of these labor force issues, making things easier for producers? Do we still have a long way to go? How would you kind of describe where we're at?
I would say that, government is a slow and tedious process, and so we're always working to chip away at that. And the reality is that the visa programs do unfortunately get caught up in the larger political discussion about immigration, and that can slow things down. But we've had positive engagements with the White House recently on TN visas, and are hoping to have further positive developments there. And despite the slow movement in Congress on H-2As, the House Agriculture Committee's working group on labor did propose several reforms to the H-2A program, which would include making it year-round for livestock industries that need it. And we're supporting them. We contributed a lot to those proposals, and we're supporting efforts to push those through. Obviously, Congress moves at its own scale, and we just have to continually remind them of the importance of having a reliable workforce for pork producers.
And we know NPPC does a lot of work in a lot of different avenues, but is this one where producers can really see, behind the scenes, the policy side of things, that they do need a group like NPPC fighting for them, because it's pretty hard for an individual farmer, to get something done in this area?
Yeah. So we do try and bring producers to DC to go up on the Hill and, advocate for their issues, and we're always reminding them that Congress has sometimes short-term memory on issues, and their constant feedback of their personal stories, how it affects them, is crucially important for Congress. You're their constituent, so reminding them that that issue matters to you and to your vote is very important. So I think they do kind of get to see behind the curtain and realize that it's challenging, but it's important that you have a unified voice up there with lawmakers.
Christina, is there anything else you'd like to let our viewers, our listeners in Iowa know about when it comes to the hard things you've been working on, and I guess anything else in the NPPC world that you would like to let them know about?
Yeah, well, as always, I remind you that, it may not feel like it's doing anything, but sharing those personal stories of, your guest workers and how important they are to your farm is so important, to remind your lawmakers that it's not related to the larger immigration issue that they think it is, and it's important for rural America to be, to continue in the future as populations decline. So remind your lawmakers that it matters to you and you'd like H-2A reform, and bring your issues to me and we'll work on them.
She is Christina Banoub with the National Pork Producers Council. Christina, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us here today, and have a great rest of the World Pork Expo.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you once again to Christina Banoub for joining today's show. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. And you can find our video content and previous episodes of AM/PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget as well our free morning, midday, and closing market podcast, which are found on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. On behalf of Quentin Slater, Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.